Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at Fons & Porter. In this Sew Easy tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create the Cathedral Windows pattern design. The the little table runner behind me is called Calypso, and it's using that same technique. We've got a small one here on the Sewing Center. Cathedral Windows has been around for quite a while, and usually they are done in about a quarter of this size. We've oversized them to make them a little bit more modern and fun, and done them all by machine now. In the past, a lot of people would have done this design by hand, all hand stitching. But we are going to be using a light background fabric. The Cathedral windows are usually traditionally done with a light background so that the colors and the little windows tend to pop out. But you could have a little fun and do a gray or a dark color background and have a little adventure at that. We're going to start with 16-inch squares here as background, and we're going to be pairing up 5-inch squares or pre-cuts of 5-inch squares as the little windows in the project. So we're going to take that 16-inch square, we're going to fold it in half, right sides together, and we're going to seam along the two short ends from the outside edge to the fold. And then I've got that part done so that we can get on to the next kind of realignment, because that stitching is a little tougher. So you see the 1/4-inch seam on both ends here. This is where the pocket, the opening is here. What we're going to do is we're going to realign, and we're going to fold this so that the two seams come together in the center. And you can kind of push one seam one direction, one the other, make them abutted seams. We're going to put a pin there. Perfect accuracy probably isn't the most important here, but we do want to keep this somewhat square. So we're going to kind of align here. We're going to stitch from here to the center, keep going, go to the other side. We're going to stitch part way, break our thread, jump about 2 inches, and continue sewing to the end. What we're doing is leaving a space there as a turning spot for this portion of the Cathedral windows. So I put this under the sewing machine, align my cut edges. You're going to use a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and you would want to use a matching thread here instead of a bright red, but in order for you to see it, we're using a bright color. You would use a cream color thread probably for this step. As I get to my pin, I take it out so that I don't dent the pin or damage the tip of my sewing machine needle. Get that second half aligned, because it's kind of a long piece to sew across. So we're going to sew a ways, then we're going to tie off, cut thread, take it out, jump about 2 to 3 inches. Make sure your cut edges stay aligned, and make a knot there or back stitch it just a little bit so that it won't pull out as we're turning our piece. Continue on that 1/4-inch seam allowance to the end. Now you can see I've stitched along. I've left myself that little window, that little hole there for turning. What I'm going to do now is take scissors and I'm going to trim. This is just a little tip removal here, a diagonal cut into that seam allowance, taking off the tips. That will make the turning process so that the corners will come out nice and sharp. Just that little bit to take away. Now we need to find that hole that we left behind, and we're going to turn the entire piece right side out. And we gently pull through that space. Sometimes they turn faster than others, but it's just like making a pillow at this point. Give a little tug. You're just going to want to do gently because you don't want to stretch that opening and pull the stitching out. There's no need to actually go back and close that hole up because you're going to have that on the interior of the block. It will not be exposed in any way, so it does not need to be closed up. I'm putting my finger into the corner points and pushing those out. Pretty much can do that with your finger. You get it inside the corner and then push it all the way out. So I've got all 4 corners. I'm going to lay it flat, and then you're going to take it to the ironing board and you're going to press this flat, and I've got one kind of ready here and portion already ironed out, the outside edge. What we need to do next is a folding technique, almost like an origami kind of thing. And we're going to take it over to the ironing board and we're going to use pins to help us get all of those points aligned. What we need to do is once you've got this pressed flat is to take the outside corner to the center. So we're going to put a pin in just to hold it a little bit there. I'm going to go in and press this flat. And then we're going to take the next corner, pull it to the center. The pins just kind of give you an extra hand to hold on to things so that you can maneuver your iron to the outside edge. And work your way all the way around the block, bringing all of those corners to the center, just like an envelope. We'll just show you the last ones here. So you have all 4 corners brought to the center and aligned. Now I've got some that are already pressed and ready to go. Got 2 of them here. While you're working on this part, you might just want to do all of the background blocks at once and have them all prepared and ready to go. This is where you're going to be creating the window spacings for those little blocks of color you're going to put in. And they have to go here. So what we need to do is to join together 2 of these blocks. And what we're going to be doing is taking up 2 of the triangles, those points, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a refold. We're going to fold these back, and along that fold line is where we want to stitch. Now it takes just a couple of pins to hold everything in place. The most critical points are going to be the outer edge. So I'm going to kind of align that. If your crease isn't dark enough for you to see real well, you can go in with a fabric marking tool and make just a hint of a line there. But what we're going to do is you're going to stitch along that fold all the way along, and you're going to want to make sure that you do a tack stitch here at the beginning and a tack at the end, because this is the actual construction of the base of this project and we don't want that to come out. So stitch along here and that will join those together. I've got one already joined. So if I were to fold these up, remember that's how we realigned it. There is my stitching line. Again, you would want to use a matching thread for this process. So from one corner to the other, then I can open this up and out. And that is where my little window of fabric is going to reside in the end. Now, if I could do one here, but you see the projects get bigger and bigger. We need more and more windows. So what you need to do is to join together, and say for this table runner, it's 2 blocks wide, but many blocks in length. So you need to then put together rows. You can put together 2s and then just join. So you would join along here in the same method by picking this up and this one and sew this entire length along here. Now, once you've got pieces joined, and we'll just work on the 4 here that's similar to the one on the work surface, you're going to go in and you're going to tack down those points. Those points that we drew together in the pressing process, you're going to tack those together with a tack stitch all the way through all the layers. Do that wherever the 4 points come together so that you've got them secured. Now, the places where we can put fabrics. If you look at the one that's already completed, that means that there's a window here, there's a window here, here, and here. You can have fun playing around with the alignment of your colors in your blocks, and that's part of the design process. But let's see, how do you actually put those fabrics into that? When you tack down the points, you created bias edges here that can be then easily wrapped toward the 5-inch block, and we can stitch along that fold all the way around the block. Now, one little tool that I found was helpful for me was to use applique pins. They're a shorter pin, and it doesn't get tangled up or you don't get poked in the process of getting this under your sewing machine. So I can come in, wrap that back, and put a little pin in to hold it in place. Applique pins are about half the length or less, possibly, of a regular quilting pin. And I can work my way around and hold it back while I take it to the sewing machine that way to do the stitching. Now, the stitching that you're going to be doing can be done in a contrasting thread, it can be a decorative stitch, it can be a straight stitch, it can be a matching thread. I'm going to do it with a contrasting thread so that you can see where my stitching is at. The project done here on the sewing center was done with a matching thread, and so was the table runner Calypso. What we want to do is we want to stitch right along that fold, and we want to probably be able to go all the way around each of the blocks continuously. So we're going to start in a corner, put our needle positioned toward the center so we've got the best view of the fabrics. Put my needle down to get started, and then we're going to stitch very close to that fold all the way along. And I'm going to pull out my pin as I approach it. The stiletto can help you kind of be a pointy tip to hold it right up against the presser foot there so that you get a nice consistent edge. And as I approach the next pin, do the same thing, kind of replace it with the stiletto to hold it as it glides under the presser foot. As you reach the corners, what you want to do is kind of overlap those folded edges so you get a nice clean point. Leave your needle in the down position, pick up your presser foot, pivot, and come back out of that point into the next curve. I can slide my pin out. You can see by maneuvering pieces like this that if they were long pins, they could be a little bit detrimental to where your fingers are positioned. So that's why I kind of like to use the small ones as I'm working my way around. Let's just do two sides, and then I'll pull it out and you can see how we're doing here. Okay. You can see I've stitched then right along the curve, into the point, and back out again, and I would just continue all the way around the block doing all four sides to finish that window. Now, then you would just proceed to the next blocks and you would have the major part of your block done. Now, a cathedral window doesn't have batting, it doesn't have binding. It has half blocks on the outer edge, and those can either be left flat, like the one here on the sewing center, or in the table runner, I went around that outside edge without putting a fabric in here and just turn those edges, those curved edges, folds back to just kind of create that ellipse kind of look along the outer edge. Cathedral windows. Something new, a little oversized, a little modern. Have some fun. Thanks for joining me today.